Okay, have you ever had some, some people propose to you something that would benefit you and your children, and but it also comes with certain kinds of things that you're not too sure about, how controlling they are. You can have this thing, but you have to mind them, basically. And it can come off that way, or it can come off as these are, now in this situation I'm about to talk about, it's elders, people that run a county called Victorson County. And they're the elders. They really just run the whole thing. And they make this offer to a man named Mark. Okay. But like I said, they give him, in some ways, an ultimatum. Either you do this or you lose that. And really, now they're not bad people, but they have grown accustomed to running the show. Now, people who grew up there, they're used to it. It's been going on since the whole county, the first town, was established many eons ago. And that's just part of their culture, their customs and cultures and all that they grew up with. They've had it for generations. But people that marry into it from the outside, it can come off as, whoa, they're kind of controlling. But some of them are able to see the benefits. Some are not. Okay, so now let me get to the story. Okay, now Mark was married to a woman named Tanya for 15 years. Tanya grew up in Victorson County. She's used to this, that the elders, who all lived in a huge mansion on the XYZ ranch. Okay, they have ranches that circle the whole county, and all of them go by numbers like 1, 2, 3, then another one 4, 5, 6, or letters, 3 letters. Right. One of them has 2, but anyway, these ranches, the other ranches are dude ranches, but this one, it's mainly the elders, but they do have some parts of it they use, as dude ranches, and the people that live in the county who are descendants from the original settlers, they're the only ones that can own property. But they also have to do at least 2 weeks out of the year, they come to whatever ranch they live closest to, and they go to it, and they work there for a couple of weeks. This is how they do it traditionally. It's their custom culture, part of their culture to be okay with this and all that. Anyway, now, so Tanya, he had been married to Tanya for 15 years, and she was used to it, but he was having, he was not so sure about it. He didn't understand it all, and there were things that the descendants never told their spouses that lived outside of the, they met outside the county and never lived in it. They just never told them. You had to be a descendant to know. And they also signed prenups, that basically they were aware of it at the time of prenup, that there are things that they won't know. It's very secretive, and that's because it's very wealthy. It's a very wealthy county overall, not all of it. Just one town is not. But now she had cancer, and she had basically when she died, before she died. They had 5 kids together. 5. Okay. Well, 2 of them were a set of twins. But like I said, they were only together for 15 years when she died. And so his kids basically inherited, because he is an outsider, basically, think of him an outsider. His kids inherited. Whenever they come of age, they would inherit the home, but he was allowed to stay in it, to raise them, of course. They're not going to separate families. And but overall, his kids own the property. They would have inheritance, not just one. Usually people in that county, they only have 1 or 2 children. But this one, they had 5. So anyway, now he has a degree in business management. And, he still had to take his kids You know, he had a job, so he had to take off time 2 weeks out of the year to take his kids, you know, to to the ranch, and he had to work too on the ranch. And he really liked this XYZ ranch and all that. Well, so he would help. He would do some assistance with, you know, the running of the business and the accounting and stuff those 2 weeks. And his kids, you know, they weren't forced into any kind of labor. It was up to them, but they weren't really working. What they were doing was learning, you know, how a ranch works. Okay, they were not, you know, there's no child labor. But they did. They went there and they learned, and you know, they had fun too. It wasn't all work or anything like that, but it was tradition. You know, I need to look up those words again: tradition, custom, and oh boy, it's been a long while in culture. But yeah, I know the difference. Anyway, so when all this part of this story started, he was dating a woman named Sissy, and Sissy was just overall, you know, histrionic. Her behavior, she was all about herself too, you know, narcissistic, histrionic blend behavior. She was all about herself, and she was mean girl type, and she had a high sense of entitlement. Like, she came there, well, she wasn't involved in it, so she wasn't going to do any of the work. Like Mark, he'd also help out in the kitchen, and other women or men or whoever wanted to help out in the kitchen or whatever, that's what they did. And during their 2 weeks, and now whichever one they were closer to. Okay, you see what I'm saying? But she didn't want to. She says she's not part of the family. She's just dating, but she was going to go stay there with her boyfriend, you know, Mark. And they didn't like that. They did not like to have anybody on their property. You know, the elders had such an attitude, and but she did. And there were two sisters that were in the ranch doing their 2 weeks, and they talked to Mark about Sissy. You know, they were, you know, one of them was kind of rather like tough love about it, and their late cousin is Tanya. And they let him know they just didn't like her and didn't think that the kids needed to be around her. You know, mainly the tough one, that they just didn't need to be around that kind of person. So, you know, Mark was kind of like bowled over by, you know, how some people could be so direct. And so they just told him flat out that's how they saw it. Okay, now the elders, they call the XYZ elders because they live on the XYZ ranch. But the elders, they're basically people who were 70 years old and older that chose to, you know, move away from their homes and live there. And they basically have meetings there and all. Some of them live on the in the mansion. Some of them don't stay in their home, but they basically, like I said, run the show, run the county. It's very well the county. You know, they do things like investments too, and they're really good at what they do. So anyway, now those elders, XYZ elders, they have been watching Mark for years. Okay, you know, Mark's not a descendant, but they've been watching him, and they wanted him. Eventually, they knew that their accountant, their main accountant, and their, you know, possible business manager, that they were getting older and they might want to retire, and they want a replacement for one or the other. And you know, somebody that's basically going to run the ranch, you know, the whole manager. And they were looking at him, okay. And one of them decided to, you know, have him call him in, and they would talk to him, you know, have a little discussion about it, and see how, you kind of put a little feelers out and see how he, you know, how he might respond. But they're very direct people, and they told this one that, you know, did a personal at first, told Mark about this position, you know, both positions that were coming up, and you know, basically asked him what was his position, where he, you know, his you know, his position and his job, you know, what kind of things he did, and, you know, the usual interview stuff. And let's see, let me read my notes a little bit here. I wrote some. Now Mark knows about, because of its children, he's one that knows a little bit more about what some never learn, and because his children are minors, and that basically they get dividend checks. It's kind of like dividend checks from the county, because their elders and all this have invested money, and that's what happens year after year. And so he knows that they told him, this one told him about it. And then he said that, he told Mark, he said that, about the position and everything, that he could take as the business, the whole business office manager, the whole ranch manager, okay, everything that involved, that place. That, and he could hire somebody for an accountant, whatever it was, or hire people for it, to replace anybody that left. He would do it all. Okay, he was the man, going to be the man that does it all. And so he was, rather mature about it, and he was taking it all in, and thinking about it. And but then they said, this one said something that he wasn't sure about. Okay, now he offered, that Mark could stay living in his own home with his children, that basically the children own, or they could, move on to the ranch and where they would live, and they could sell the house, or the house would go to one of the kids. They all of them, because they had grandparents and so forth and so forth. They all have inheritance coming. And usually it's property. And they said that, it was him and then the one that was talking to him, and then it became more. As they started talking more about it and started to feel how he, saw how he felt about it, they basically come, in and started talking to him and said, but there's basically a stipulation. They told him, he can live with his kids on the XYZ ranch to do his job, so he, no traffic and all that, and his kids would keep everything, but as far as that he could leave, he could be there. Okay, now they said that one stipulation, and they said they don't want the children to be around Sissy, his girlfriend Sissy. Period. She is not allowed to move in, and he's living with her, with the kids, and she's not allowed. Well, at first he was living with her and the kids, but they don't want her to go there. I know that makes sense. Actually, I need to correct it. I'm reading my notes wrong. He lived with her outside of the county when all this started, but they have a house that is theirs. The kids, belongs to the kids. And so he's living in Sissy's house. That they were living outside the county, at the time. And they would come in, I read my notes wrong, but they would come in and do their 2 weeks work, and then they'd go back to their house outside, like in the big city. 2 weeks out of the year until his wife, died, and then he would only come in 2 weeks with his kids. From their home, the home that Mark owned himself outside of the county. Whew, man, straighten it all up. So then they made him the offer that he could come and live within the county, and in their house that was Tanya's, what she inherited with his kids, but and work at the XYZ ranch, but Sissy could not be in the picture. Okay, can you imagine? Seriously, can you imagine? Yeah, I think I got this story mixed up. This is going to happen because this is a rough draft. But he was living with her, but I think he was living with her at her house. Oh my goodness. But anyway, it's been like probably close to 2 years since I've updated this story. Seriously. This is a hypothetical fictional stories series. This one about Mark, he's 40 years old when it first starts. It was probably 2 years ago. Yeah, I haven't updated. Anyway, so let's move on. And so he made he made, of course, the right decision. It really came down to a decision between, because his kids weren't going to inherit any more than what they had already had, that house. And he made the choice for his future, for himself and for his kids. Okay, you know, they had their inheritance. But, okay, let me try to finish this. But his kids would, you know, they would have what was already their inheritance. But if he stopped taking them in there every 2 weeks, they would lose it, and then they have to make it up later on. It's a whole thing. Okay, I'm telling you, it's been 2 years. And so he did what was right for himself and his kids. And he wanted the job. It sounded wonderful because he would get all that. And basically, he would become an honorary descendant. Okay, and that's huge. There, it's not something they generally do very often. So he would, you know, he and his kids, and then the kids would be there, as they grew up there. And he really liked the place, but his wife had wanted to move outside of it when she was, you know, before she died. They hadn't moved back. And like I said, the family, they don't like Sissy at all. So they talked to the elders, and they told her how she is. And some of them already knew because they lived there. And the way she was acting, like she's a prima donna, she didn't have to do anything. Everybody was supposed to cater to her. She even acted like the staff, which were people coming in from the county doing their 2 weeks, like they had to wait on her hand and foot, you know. And so he made the right choice. He chose to leave Sissy and to live on the ranch with his kids and run the show, which is good, because what happened after that is another video, but it's important. I'll talk to you in another video. Bye.